What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Trainman Report. My name is Holden Stephan Roy. We have Alex, the Trainman Montagano, over there to the left of me, and we have our special guest tonight, Mr. Brian Smith himself, who will be learning a whole lot more over the course of the episode. So just to let you know, we are the Trainman Report. This is a show focused on NDG, news, culture, etc. And we are trying to expand this to be a platform for the NDG community. So if you have ideas on what you think we should be talking about, let us know in the comments. Let us know who you want to see on the show. Tag your friends. Share it with your friends, because if you share it with your friends, it counts more than if we keep posting. That's how the world works. Net promotion scores and all. So yeah, basically it's a live show as well, so make sure to come through Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter, actually, or X as they call it these days. So you can follow us over there and participate in the conversation. We'll do our best to talk to you in real time. And yeah, that's all the housekeeping stuff. And there's a giveaway that we were looking into today, so we have a special prize based on the wonderful art craftsmanship of the Trainman himself, his secret sensitive side, where he lets out his expressiveness and frustrations against the government and the budget through art and creativity as a good outlet in life. On that note, Alex, take it away. Introduce our guest and your wonderful creations.
Yeah, so listen intently to the show, because at the end of the show, we will be having, asking 3 quiz questions, and the person who correctly answers those questions to the best of their ability will win these. So, if your romance is, I guess, on the rocks, you're in the doghouse vis-a-vis, the lady, or your other partner for that matter, we're open to all here. These are custom-made candle holders in which I made myself, and I painted myself as well. So they're unique items. You will not find these in any store. You can only find them here on the Trainman Report. So custom painted Montreal traffic cones.
Are they branded de Ville de Montreal on them?
No, they're not. I would have to pay licensing fees for that.
Is that how it works for real?
No, I'm just talking crap like usual. These actually, the inspiration for these was, believe it or not, came from a spoof that I made. I created the baby bucket, excuse me, which was a kind of like a spoof on the city's Boîte de Bienvenue Bébé, and in them I had traffic cones. For babies to play with, so they could experience the true, nature of what it is to live in Montreal. And someone suggested that I should make the traffic cones into candle holders, because the baby bucket also had candles. But I digress. Ladies and gentlemen, the most important part of this podcast is that we are very privileged and honored to have Brian Smith on the show. He is an important community member, a rising community member in the West Indian community. Well, the community as a whole, but he is West Indian. He's born and raised in NDG. And you were born in the year of 1968, were you not?
1968, yeah.
So same
giving
year as
away my age. Giving away my age.
Same year as I am. So you're
okay.
a Gen Xer.
It was a good year.
A very good year. That's correct. And I guess, we talked, briefly over the phone, and we discussed your past, and you had quite a bit to say about, your youth here in NEG. So I guess we always start the show with asking our guests their origin story. So you were
Alex,
born...
do you actually think you could raise your volume a little bit, bring your mic a little closer to your mouth?
There we go. They're going to raise it. How's that? Is that better? Better?
Yes.
Okay. Excuse me. So we were talking over the phone, and you were born in Catherine Booth Hospital, which is now a rehabilitation center. That is basically, I can upstairs from my house, I can see that hospital.
Wow.
So so you were born in Catherine Booth Hospital, right?
Born in Catherine Booth Hospital, right. June 30th, 1968.
Well, now we all use your social security number there, Brian.
Yeah, so yeah, people that don't know. So I guess it's called it back in the day that it was a birthing hospital. So parents who had came up here from Jamaica about 4 years before I have an older brother who was also born at Catherine Booth in 1967. So yeah, it all started there. After that, grew up on Fielding and West Hill. For those of you know, that used to be the old Marymount, where there's Confederation Park, and that's where it really started for us. And I still remember the address: 6361 Fielding, apartment 21.
Amazing.
So that's where it all started.
Do you remember your phone number?
4884. You know what? Here's the thing. My parents still have the same phone number. So
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Not fair.
514-488-4778. So, we're giving out all my information here tonight, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it was, great times. It was different dynamics. It was, this elementary school was up the street. The high school was next to you. I guess back then too, in the day, NDG had these gangs. So you had the Walkley gang, and you had the Benny gang, and you had the Yo-Yo gang. Not as gangs as we think today, but just, if you go back and you think just kids hanging out together. And they were older than us too as well. So it was really, really, really some fun times back in NDG in those days. And I still remember too, I had mentioned to you, the arena, which is Doug Harvey Arena. I remember as a kid when they were building it up. The park, Confederation Park, I have pictures of when there was nothing there. And I have, and then, now there's a swimming pool there and everything like there. So I'm going back from a lot of history. And I have those memories in my head like they were just yesterday.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's amazing what you can remember from your youth. We had a gentleman, Michael Montague, who was he had just published a book called Life's Undercard, and it's amazing the stuff he was recounting back in the Point and in the East End when he was a very, very young boy. So here you are, you grew up, raised in NEG, and then you got involved in sports, from my understanding. You got a scholarship and you went to Boston University. Am I skipping
Yeah, I
too
went to
far
Boston
ahead?
University.
Yeah.
One of the things is I've always been involved with sports, playing hockey. That was the thing, because the arena was right across the street. So from playing, and playing ball hockey too. So ball hockey, going to high school at West Hill High School, Royalvale, baseball, which was actually my best sport. But I got the opportunity to get a full scholarship for football to go to Boston University. So that took me out of NDG at the time. Even before that too, I went to Vanier College, a whole bunch of different things. And it was some great years. One thing too, I want to just mention too, because it was, once again, it's an NDG story.
Right.
From when I was 11 to 17 years old, so while I was in CJEP, I used to have a paper route. So if people remember now, I used to deliver the Montreal Gazette. So I used to get up early in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, go up the street, down the street, half an hour, drop off my papers. The only thing back in the day was a pain in the ass to go and collect the money. You had to go afterwards and collect the money.
Yeah, it was a pain in the ass. I remember that. I was a paper boy for the Montreal Star. It was in the afternoon, right? You were in the morning. I hated that job. I inherited it from my older brother who didn't want to do it anymore, and landed on my lap. And that was torturous.
But one of those things, though, I could say, having that paper route, and it's a part of me because it allowed me to develop an entrepreneurship spirit. Because I was the guy in high school who always had that little extra cash and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It was some good tips, and you
So
give
how old were you doing the paper route?
I started my paper route when I was 11 years old.
Well, that's young.
Okay.
Started. Before I had a paper route, I used to deliver. I don't know if it's still around, the Monitor. I used to deliver the Monitor.
No,
the Monitor used to come out like once a week, but I had a route where I had to deliver in apartment buildings, and with the apartment buildings, you could never get inside, right, because they were locked downstairs. So I got fed up. I would just drop all the papers in the front of the building. And then the supervisor who used to drive around, he says, no, that's not good enough. So actually, it was the first time I got fired from a job when I was 11 years old.
Yeah, it's good to start early.
Yeah.
Get the life lessons in young.
That's it.
Yeah.
The only local real true news outlet we have anymore in the hood is, believe it or not, the Suburban. And
Suburban, yeah.
And we only have one really local beat reporter left, and that's Joe
Mhm.
Chow Ushu. I hope I pronounced that right, Joel. If you're
Did
listening,
not.
I've been
Yeah.
You did
working on
not.
that. I did not pronounce that right. Ugh,
No.
Yeah.
It's definitely more like Shuzo or something.
no, it's
And there's no.
Chow Shu. Chow Shu.
No.
That was what I
Um,
wrote down. Chow 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 U
maybe I'm saying it wrong.
Shu.
Either way, we
All
failed
right,
a whole bunch of
we
times.
have
So he's
failed
gonna
him in
shake his
many
head.
different ways. Yes. So, here you are, a young man, delivering the newspaper, growing up in NDG, a member of the West Indian community of Jamaican descent. I'm always curious, because I live in NDG, of course. That's why I'm doing this
Mhm.
show. And I walk up the fielding, and there's definitely still to this day a significant West Indian presence. As a community up there. As you go there on a weekend and people are hanging out at the barber
Yeah.
shop,
Yeah.
they're very friendly, and
To be
I've
fair, sometimes they're hanging out at 2 a.m. in the barber shop. Let's be
yeah,
honest.
well, it's kind of a hangout thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
it's never like I never felt how do you say that it was in from coming from a bad place. It's just like people hanging, right? And my question is, how did the West Indians like? What's the story of them coming to Montreal? Where did that all come from? I still don't really
Well,
have the
here.
answer to that.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I mean, most of the West Indian, and I'm going to say for the English-speaking West Indian
Right.
community, a lot of the, I would call it, there was a domestic scheme. If you go back to the 1950s, 60s, there was a large influx of women coming from the West Indies because they came here as domestics,
Oh, I
right?
see.
And they got jobs, and then they settled in, and
I see.
then after that they were able to bring their husbands come over, and
Okay.
that was the situation with my family, is that some of her sisters came here, settled, they were in Little Burgundy, and then they sent for my mother came, and then they sent for my father, and my father came. And after that, back then in Montreal, some of them stayed, right? Because some of them said, you know what, they went to New York, went to Toronto. But my parents and call it immediate aunts and uncles, most of them settled in NDG. So for us, we were on Fielding and West Hill. There were some people who moved to Walkley, Monkland, Chester. I guess as you see, those were like, apartment buildings. And I believe they said those buildings were built sometime, I guess, after the war or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
There were little enclaves there, you know what I mean?
Late
So
40s, early 50s. Yeah.
yeah. So literally, as not even as a teen, but as when I was 6, 7 years old, that sector between Fielding and Chester and West Hill and Randall, there's apartment buildings. So we used to play in there's a laneway back there. If you ever been by, there's a laneway. So we used to play back there. We used to play hockey there, baseball, do stuff we weren't supposed to do. Set fires, bonfire. We used to do a lot of crazy stuff there. And if any of my friends who are growing, who are tuned in, Freddie Bichet, I remember Peter Kirschberger. They know what we're talking about. But there were some really, really good times. And
What I'm hearing is before cameras, y'all had a lot more fun.
Yeah. It was, it was great. And you know what? We had a mix. There was a mix of us, right? So it was West Indian, there was German, there was French. We all used to go to everybody's birthday parties. And we thanks to Facebook, I mean, we've been able to connect with back with each other. But it was some great times in NDG. And, as I said, summertime, we all go to the pool. After that, we go to each other's houses. And it was a different dynamic. It was like kind of like a loving and stuff like that, But as you get older now, life starts to change a bit. You know what I mean? So it's different. But it was really, really, really good times.
I am hearing very much the same coming from you, that Andrew Cadell was on the show, and he lived in the Benny Farm area, and he
Benny
said
Farm,
very similar things about how they used to play in this open field near Benny Farm, and they used to go around their wagons and have races, and it's like really like this kind of real outdoor and play, and like get up to stuff and do stuff together as kids. And it was just like
Yeah,
the
I
kids would
mean,
disappear in the morning, come back for dinner, and the parents, whatever it is, what
yeah,
was what it was,
but
right?
you know what? The sense of community and kind of bringing it back to the West Indian thing, and this is something that even continues till today.
Right.
When we were living on Fielding in West Hill, every Saturday night, all of my uncles and aunts used to come over to our place, and they used to play bingo. They used to play this Jamaican game called Ludi.
Mhm.
Uh, some gambling was actually going on, but but it was of a social thing because that's what used to take place when they were back home. And my parents, everybody's coming from families, 8 brothers, 6 sisters. Everybody used to just come over there Saturday night. We used to watch Hee Haw. We used to watch Lawrence Welk, and then people then the elderly used to go, the older people, my aunts and uncles used to go gamble. And then even there was a couple of uncles of mine, they used to call him Worry. So here I am now as a young man. I'm making my money as a Gazette route, and he always used to lose his money. So, around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, when he'd always lose, he'd tap on my door and say, Brian, can you lend me a five? Can you lend me a five? You want to get back into the game.
To the game.
You want to get back into the game. But that was it, man. As I said, it was some, those are some cherished memories.
Again,
So,
this
like,
reminds me. You go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So what I'm really hearing is like over, because like I live on Fielding right now, a few blocks away from where you're describing, and we don't really have that same sense of public, in-your-face community block partying. Like there is a couple of corners where people do congregate, like not Walkley, but the one right before Walkley. That
Montclair,
one right there.
Montclair.
Absolutely. That's what's the popping corner right now. But I've lived here now for 8 years, and year over year, the number of people who actually do congregate there has probably cut to about a third of when I moved into the area. And I've noticed that like this is kind of happening all over. So I think it's really like it's almost like without the city, y'all created what the city's trying to induce with pedestrian streets and all this other stuff. So if I'm just like hearing you correctly, back in the day, that's the vibe, is people would be very watching out for each other so you could play in the streets because everybody knows everybody and is almost like citizen protection, watching the kids and making sure everything's good.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm not going to say that it was exactly that, but I mean, it was a different time period. Like I said, everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew me as the paper boy, right? So, I couldn't get in trouble because people knew who I was. I said that's Brian, the paper boy, and stuff like that. So I had to, and I was, I was proud to deliver the newspaper because I had my bag and stuff like that. The sense of pride in delivering the newspaper as a kid. You know what I mean? But
sorry, not to cut you off. We just have John Jordan in the chat going, my apartment used to be a mahjong parlor before I moved in.
Yeah. So, it's funny again, you're talking and I'm hearing like, I'm having memories of our interview with Michael Montague, who was of West Indian. He was West Indian Irish descent. Okay. And he talks about, he grew up more in the 40s and 50s, so before our time, right? But he does talk about how there was this sense of community back then and people looked out for each other. And there were these bonds at the neighborhood level that they don't seem to exist in the same way today. Now, is that a good thing, a bad thing? I don't know. Maybe it's because...
you know what? I think, our society, everything is kind of, everybody's on the individualistic thing, that whole collective spirit is not there anymore. Everybody's just doing their own thing. Is it because of technology? Is it because everybody's just trying to get ahead? A lot of people, you may not even speak to your neighbor. You might live in the same apartment building or something. You don't, people don't get the time to speak. So we've lost some of that, social.
As you say that, I do have a very social neighbor, and sometimes, and I know it's not good, but I feel wildly annoyed that he wants to talk to me for 5 minutes. And as you're saying it, I'm like, that's actually a me problem, and I should be more social with my neighbors because you're making a valid point. And I know that, like look at a lot of the communities have migrated to Facebook status comments. where like what used to take place in like real life streets is just kind of happening online on spicy statuses and you know, DM groups and private things, and it has us all kind of staying home. And I might be wrong, but I believe along the point in the 80s there was stranger danger that kind of came to life, and this had an impact on, you know, parents letting their kids run free in our greater society. And then we mix that with you know,
don't take candies from white mans.
Don't take candies. What's the thing there? I remember in being elementary school, you know, what do they call it there, with the parents thing? You know, you used to put that sign.
Block parents.
Yeah,
I remember that.
The whole block parent
they
thing.
had these singles that people would put in their house in case you were in trouble. That's
in trouble,
right.
Yeah. So you identify as a block parent. So these are things that took place. I guess that was kind of it, where, you know, whoa, if you're in trouble. But I mean, you know, we never really wandered out by ourselves. I mean, you know, it was always, you know, a clique of stuff. Everybody kind of looked out for one another. You know what I mean? So,
well, is that kind of like, you know, obviously when we were younger, there was always these risks that were there, right? They're out there, right? And you know, was that the whole block parent reflective of an increased risk, or was it more reflective of an increase? How do you say, collective sensitivity to that issue? I don't know. I'm like, I can't really answer that question. Do you understand what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, well, you know what? I think, you know, around that time too as well, like, you know, maybe like, you know, things were happening where it's like, oh, okay, you know, now we have a need for a block parent, or, you know, there's a child who got lost going to school or things like that. I mean, It was kind of like new for us back then, but, you know, these things come out because there's a particular need, or there's a change in society, or things that take place, you know, and up till today, I mean, you know, it would be nothing for me as not even as a 5-year-old. I mean, going to nursery school, walking maybe 10, 15 minutes away, because, well, with my older brother, you go there, you come back. Right. But that would never be the case today.
No.
You know?
I learned that the hard way with my kids.
But it's wild, because like I was allowed to walk like to school. In fact, like there was this, I remember vividly when I was like in grade 6, so I'm in my 30s now, so for context, but like me and my brother would go to school, but we'd actually pick up this next girl that was like in like the school with us, and like as a group we'd then kind of walk the rest of the way, and it wasn't far. It was like maybe a 10-minute walk, but we were like all on, like, you know, 10 and under kind of thing, and we were just allowed to do that. But if you did that today, you'd be be told that you're a negligent parent or whatever.
Exactly.
I've had that happen to me.
So it's a different, you know, it's different times, like different color, different stroke for different stroke, but it's a different time period. So, you know, for the people who are listening and, you know, watching now, you know, it's like you have to put things in context. You know, I mean, it was different time.
I think it also goes hand in hand how we, you know, for good reasons, but there's also consequences of that. We become very protective of our children, right? Like a lot of shit happened back in the day, right? People, like, kids got killed. You could just look at, you know, car safety.
Allegedly, y'all also used to just fight for no reason. We've had several guests who grew up back then point out how people just fought for no reason all the time. Right. Like that was what y'all did for fun, was beat each other up. So I'm not saying Brian did. I'm saying several other guests have come on and made that claim.
Well, we used to do some stupid things back then. I mean, you know, I guess one of my vices is that I always used to, and I could say it now, I used to go into my mom's cookie jar and steal her quarters and her money. And then we would go to, we would go to, I don't know if you remember this, Alex, but on Côte St. Luc Road, okay, there used to be an arcade. For those of you who know what an arcade is.
Right, I remember it.
They're called Sherry's.
Arcades.
Sherry's Arcade. So we all used to go there and play Q*bert and Asteroids and pinball and all that type of stuff. So, but I'm in there like, you know, as a 12-year-old, you know what I mean? So going there, and I'll tell you this, that's where one of my bad experiences came about, because my uncle, God rest his soul, Lyndon, I remember going into the arcade, and he had just bought me a new 10-speed bicycle, brand new, black, shiny. And, I'm not thinking anybody's going to steal my bike. I put my bike outside the arcade, leaving, my bike is gone. Whoa.
That hurts.
Shock.
It hurts.
So.
Yeah, that hurts. That really
happened. It wasn't, it wasn't a big deal, but these are things that were happening, But the thing is, I found out who stole the bike.
Who stole the bike?
Got it back.
You got it back.
I got the bike back. I got the bike back.
That's a story.
I told you we all looked out for each other. So you know what? If somebody has the bike, shiny bike, say, "Oh, such and such got that bike." I got the bike back.
Yeah, back in those days, Holden, I really don't know whether this was a shared experience of your generation, but when I was a young boy, and you're the same age as I am, probably, getting a new bike was a really big deal.
Yeah, no,
10 speed.
And he got 10 speed. Yeah, remember there's the 3 speeds, and the 10 speeds were like the Cadillac of the bikes, right? That was it. My God.
No, I mean, I think I had a 22 speed or something, but like the speed numbers were higher. But yeah, it was a big deal, and I spent a lot of my younger days cycling around. Especially where Edinburgh Elementary School is, like all around that part. That's kind of where I would be. And then even when I got older, I still cycle to this day, but yeah, it definitely started when I was a kid, and it was a big deal to get a cool new bike and be able to like show that off, and especially if that had a good paint job and it was cool colors and whatnot.
Yeah, that was our, that's our main means of transportation. You got your bike. We could ride around, go to the park, go to Loyola Park,
go downtown,
right up to when they had the ice cream there on Saint Jacques Seal Test. You go up there, go to the Coca-Cola factory when it was all of these. So
there's a Coca-Cola factory in DG.
Yeah, we had a Coca-Cola factory. Yeah, right where there's the Home Depot.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, there used to be a Coca-Cola factory right there.
That is something that I don't remember. But I will say this, getting back on track and talking about the West Indian community, I found this recently. I was going through garbage. It's what I do.
Okay.
And there was an old suitcase, one of the old brown leather suitcases with straps, and I said, I gotta take a look at that. That's old. There's got to be something in there. And I found all this interesting documentation in there. And believe it or not, this is a flyer from 1968, the year born, February 23rd, and it's the Trinidad. I'm going to read it so people can take a look at that. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
It's the
Trinidad and Tobago Association Carnival Dance.
Yeah, and they're having a carnival dance, right? So I thought it was interesting because it's a kind of a document that proves the existence of a vibrant West Indian community back then, and it continues to be active and vibrant today. But let's go on into that. Like you're heavily involved in the community. You do work up in Cotoneige as well, and you were talking about how the West Indian community here, its origins can be traced in part to the domestic workers coming here, bringing over families. It's similar in some ways, based on what you told me. It's similar in some ways, very much to many Filipino experiences, right? The mothers, the wives come over as domestics, and they bring their family over, and they establish themselves. And there is a large Filipino community in both NEG and in more so in Cotoneige, right? And I guess you're now very heavily involved in the community in not just the West Indian community, but dealing with I'm guessing vulnerable populations, because when I talk to
here's the deal. When I came back from Boston, so that's 1992, I got a job working at the Jamaica Association of Montreal. You mentioned Noel Alexander. He's actually the person who gave me my first job in the community, and
good man.
From there,
I like Noel Alexander.
Yeah, because people know him as we used to call him Prezi. So from there, it gave me call it a door to open to really start working within the Black community. So I started, working after school programs, French programs, and I was a ball of energy when I came back from Boston. Wanted to do different things. I planned on staying in Boston, but it didn't work out. So I came back to Montreal. Now I'm at the Jamaica Association of Montreal, learning a lot of different things, learning as I'm going on, connecting with politicians, connecting with community workers, connecting with business people. So I was able to kind of, like a sponge, take all of that in and start to now create and develop my own programs and projects, because I'm out there and I see the need and say, you know what can I do? If there's a project that's going on, how can I make it better? And I always found that, if you give a lot, you're going to get a lot back in return. And I still do that today. I'm a person, it's hard for me to say no to somebody, specifically if there's something around the community and development and stuff like that. As you get older, you have to sometimes say, you can't get to it. But yeah, that's where it started for me. The Jamaica Association of Montreal, getting involved with another organization who I have a contact with today, still do some work up there, is the Carrefour Jeunesse Emploi Côte-des-Neiges. And at the Carrefour, started there working on a visible minority project. I created a financial literacy project there called Money that still goes on today. But then also, within the capacity of the Carrefour, I just developed a financial literacy talent show that I do during Black History Month each year.
A financial literacy talent show is
because it's to promote financial literacy, but it's during Black History Month, and it's just trying creative ways to do things. I do a Canada Day event. It's been going on 12 years at Martin Luther King Park, which was formerly known as Kent Park, and I've done. I've put on some nice events. The venue's closed right now. I think it's going under renovations, but there's a venue in NDG called Le Manoir.
Yes.
It used to be like a gym.
It's going under renovations.
With myself, with this lady named Miss Eveline Fleming. She's going to be turning 100 this year.
Wow.
She is one of the founding members of the Jamaica Association of Montreal. Right. And she also created her own organization, which was called the Jamaican Canadian Community Women's League. We fed over 500 people around 2014, 2015, because we used to have these free financial literacy pancake breakfasts. So we'd bring people together, give them food, pancakes, a lot of delicious food. And then after we kind of, have workshops, have discussion on financial literacy. So and all of these things come from, I guess, the sports background of mine. I like working in a team environment. Everybody knows what they need to do. And it's so much more easier to develop the community if you have that mindset. But not everybody has that mindset. But, I'm a giver. I think, I look at myself, I'm a giver. I like working with people who are givers. So when givers are working with givers, it's a great time. When givers work with takers, not a good thing. When takers are with takers, it's a toxic environment.
Right. Right.
Yeah, sorry. It kind of glitched there for a second. I don't know if it glitched for everyone.
I think it's important that you repeat that. You were saying when givers give, you get back, and you said takers. What's that? Could you repeat that?
Yeah, so when givers work with givers, it's a great thing, right? Everybody gets along, When givers work with takers, it could be a little bit of toxicity. Things don't really move. When takers are working with takers, it's a toxic environment.
Right.
So, I try to stay away from the takers. Sometimes you can't get away from them because they're there, but I like working with people who like to give, because I'm a person, I work off vibes. If I have a good feeling about a person, this and that. And, in today's world, you could really see, who, right away, who's a giver, who's a taker, and trying to work with like-minded individuals, So that's why, a lot of the stuff that I do, I have fun doing. It's not a job for me. I enjoy doing it. I like getting up in the morning and working on various projects, but.
So basically what you do is you coordinate the existence of these projects. You're like the one that drives them, like you do the logistics behind them.
I do from A to Z. He
sounds like he's also the creator. You created this financial
literacy program. I create things. But here's the thing. It's a good thing. Good thing you brought up, right? Because you know what? I like to create things. So some of these projects, such as the talent show, the Canada Day event. I'll say this. I'm not really motivated by these things. I mean, they're great events. I'm not motivated because I've created it. I rather some of these things I want to pass them on to somebody else because I could put my energy now to doing other things, other needs, what Côte de Neige needs, what NDG needs. I'd like to do those type of things.
So
What are
you're like an entrepreneur, but at the social engagement
social. Yeah,
level, you want to
I'm a
be
social entrepreneur.
trying new things. You have new visions that you want to execute, and that's very cool. And I guess I want to thank you for being a giver. And the community needs people like you, and I make myself available to you if you need something from me, because I think it's very important that that we collectively work together to try to build something bigger than ourselves, right? And
I get a high of doing things, creating things, like, okay, we have an idea. Okay, how are we going to get the funding? How are we going to get the partnership, the resources, and doing all together? I like doing that type of work. Some people look at it and say, what the heck is this guy talking about? But not everybody sees the vision. And I'm a person too. Before I go into anything, I have to have the vision. If the vision is clear, let's do it. You know what I mean? There's always interference. You got the politics. You got this. You got that.
So So I'm on the board of directors in Notre Dame des Arts right now, and we are redefining the vision of a not-for-profit. And it's interesting that you bring up a clear vision. Working with artists, I would argue that that's one of the hardest things to establish, is to launch a project, is a clear enough vision that other people understand what you're talking about. So can you describe to us how you come to that point of recognizing something is a clear vision, and like when you have an idea like that, what are the starting steps to a project? Because there may be people listening who want to get more involved in community work but get overwhelmed by it.
Well, the first thing, right, in most cases, right, there has to be a need, right? There's a particular need. Why do we exist? Why does your organization exist? Okay, so you determine that. Now, with that particular need, what are the objectives? What are you actually going to be doing to change the environment, whether you're going to offer a product, a service, and things like that? And sometimes I would say this, you know what? I think that some organizations, you want to do everything, right? And, you have a board of directors there who are supposed to be, quote unquote, unpaid. You're volunteers, right?
It is.
You want to do everything. You want to change.
Let us be clear.
You want to change.
You want to change work.
Yeah, you want to change the world, because I also do nonprofit consulting too as well. But you want to change the world. Sometimes you really have to look and say, you know what, the vision. Sometimes, you know what, let's focus on one or two things and get those things done, and then build from there. It's like this. You're working at a smaller organization. You have limited capacity, limited resources, limited funding, but you want to do things. And maybe the work you're doing is great work. I see a lot of organizations, because they've been around a long period of time. They have political connections. They have connections with funders. They get money, but they're not really having the impact that they should, right? And that could be due to so many different things, because sometimes some organizations, they get very complacent, right? Our money's good. Oh, this and that. Do you have people working there that want to make changes or see what the needs of the community are? Because the needs of the community is changing all the time. You have to kind of try to stay ahead of the game. Now, something I think that even, you're talking about an arts organization. How is artificial intelligence and the rise of artificial intelligence going to affect your organization, or even, if you're working with artists and things like that? So when I watch other, documentaries and I speak with people, I'm kind of fascinated, but I'm kind of looking what's going to be taking place 3-4 years down the road. So, it's like people can manipulate your voice. People are going to lose their jobs. There's going to be this shift, So the recording industry, it's changing up, a lot of people have lost their jobs who've worked in the recording industry. So try to stay ahead, and as I said, all of that
that's a good point, right? Because a follow-up question will be related to grants in general. So when you come up with your idea, I guess grants and funding in general. Mm-hmm. So I assume you don't do everything out of pocket. There must be some level of acquiring money. But when we started looking into the grants, I realized everything has to be very, very specific, so that the government knows exactly what they're funding. And as you bring up, one of the things we're trying to do is figure out what can Notre Dame des Arts actually do, because throwing concerts is cool, but that doesn't actually solve any systemic issues. It doesn't help any of the artists necessarily when the concert's over. So that's kind of like we're thinking about courses and works with that, and maybe looking into stuff like artificial intelligence and being that kind of forward thinking is a way to create a more value thing, because as you said, it's about solving problems, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's something that actually exists. So, I mean, you're in the arts. I don't know if you're aware of the Canada Council of the Arts. So they actually have funding. It's called a digital generator. So there's like seed money for arts or arts organizations to get funding to see how technology is affecting the landscape. So, for example, if you're an artist, if you're a painter and you go to, I don't know, how do you sell your art? Do you sell it online? If you go to a fair where you're selling your art, do you have one of those things that plug into your phone that you could scan and all? You know, there's so many like different things. How are you able to, are you in a position to properly monetize the arts that you're doing? You know, I'm coming, I'm coming from the day too, right? One of the things I used to do back in the day, I used to sell, I'll call it illicit mixtapes, right? Because it was in that gray area, right? Because I've always been a hustler too, as well. Okay, I could say I used to sell mixtapes, right? So, but it's there. You gotta know what, you have to be able to pivot and see what's taking place. So I'm going from mixtapes, so that's the TDK D90s, then into CDs, and then now it's like CDs are obsolete. And now you got the whole streaming thing. I don't know what's coming next and stuff like that, but you have to be able to see how. I mean, me personally, as I don't even know how artists even make money now. I guess basically the real way you can really
I don't know either. I'm too old to know anymore. It's like
I guess
I started going back to collecting vinyl again. It's like I just gave up.
There you go. So either and the money that you really have control about is when you say now you're going to go do a show, so you're going to get paid money to perform, or you're going to get paid money for the merchandise you're going to be selling. All that other stuff with the streaming and this and that, I don't know about it. I don't know how many billions of streams you need to have to collect $1 and stuff like that. And I'm sure, all those platforms, YouTube, Spotify, I'm sure they have it set up where they're going to maximize what the artist is making. So as an artist now, are you really in control of your content, And here's something, even if to say, say you're on YouTube and you're getting all these clicks, they call it, I don't know, CRMs or whatever the case may be. You know how much you're getting, but a lot of people don't ask and find out how much is YouTube making off me. Yeah. So these are questions you got to ask. It's like when you think like back in the day when you have this artist and he signs this contract with the record company and it's like he's not getting anything. It's kind of like the same thing now, but it's in a digital world. So one thing too, as artists, understand how to monetize and know the fine tuning, the fine print, and all of these things. So it's also part of financial literacy too. At the same time,
I was in Venice, and you talk about these apps and YouTube and whatever, and there was this huge mass of like yacht to the nines, and it had like. It was identified. The yacht had a name. I Googled it. Who the hell owns this thing? I said, you know who owned it? When you go on your phone and you play these games you download and all that kind of stuff, and you have to pay to play, $5 to get like some extra diamonds or whatever. That was the guy.
Wow.
But going back, I want to like bring back the conversation to the community and your role. Because there's been kind of like now, there's been a major change I see, right? I'm an outsider, so, so much I see. I see kind of like a changing of the guard kind of happening in the community, because you've had two iconic like leaders of that community gone on to greener pastures, right? We've had Noah Alexander, who's left us, and Dan Phillip of the Ligue Noire.
Yeah, this recently.
Black League. He just passed away just recently, not more than a month ago, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, what's happening with these organizations? Because, Dan Phillip, he was like a fixture, right? He was there forever. Holy smokes. And, those are going to be very, very big shoes to fill. So,
Yeah.
and same thing for, Perez, Noah Alexander. And I'm just like, what's the word on the street? Is there a
Well, you know
conversation
what?
happening right now?
Here's the situation. So Mr. Alexander, Dan Phillips, they were there for a very, very long period of time, right? And they put down their roots. They were very charismatic individuals. Unfortunately, the people coming up behind them, some people, they're not invested in the community development. So, yes, there are people who have taken over, but they haven't had the same amount of impact because you know what? I mean, look, when you're working for the community, you got to be all in, right? I mean, President of Jamaica Association, you're on call 24 hours a day. When Mr. Alexander was there were a lot of things going on within the community, good and bad. A lot of Black youth being shot. Situation with unemployment. There's a lot of different things. Dan Phillips too, with his civil rights, human rights, a lot of things like there. We haven't had the vacuum there that other people are coming up. Some people have said to me, Brian, hey Brian, you're that person, right?
Right.
I do what I do what I can do.
Right.
Honestly, I've steered away from getting heavily involved in community organizations as far as involved on the board, things like that, because I find that with my skill set and what I like to do, I'm there to help. They can always call upon me to get things done. I'm a member of the Jamaica Association. I'm not on the board. I'm not implicated in there. But when they call me, I'm there. Right. Past 2 years, I helped mobilize and their Jamaica Day thing, because working with Mr. Alexander in the past, I know how to run Jamaica Day in my sleep, because once again, I was given the opportunity from Mr. Alexander. This is what you need to do. And I like doing those things. But, we haven't had those individuals in our community. As I said, there's people who are there doing great work from a lot of different community organizations, but they don't have the charisma of a Dan Phillips. They don't have the charisma of an Eveline Fleming, a charisma of a Noel Alexander. So, and what needs to be done within the Black English-speaking community and those within NDT, we need to find strategies to work better together. It's something.
This is not a problem just for the West Indian community. It's a problem for...
You just described society, all society.
It's also a big problem for the the Anglophone population, and it's all different. It's different components. Yes,
but
I've experienced it personally.
I'm glad you brought that up. But it's funny, and as I said, it's disheartening, and sometimes
it is disheartening.
I don't get involved directly with some of the organizations because, what? Once again, I told you, I like having that collective vision.
Right.
Something, I'm going to speak about it, and probably some people are watching it right now. So this year, we have the Montreal Carnival is coming back.
Awesome.
Right?
I was asked to join a group about that, and I'm like, wow, the carnival. I was like, bring it on.
For X amount of years, it was run under an organization called the CCFA. Last year, the city did not provide any funding to them, so there was no carnival last year. So this year, there's a coalition of West Indian organizations that got together, some other community groups, and they've rebranded it. It's called Carry Mass. Right. Yes. So the big parade is going to be taking place on July the 6th. Great initiative, right? Because, but also there's other groups within the.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt you. What's the date of the parade?
The parade is going to be on July the 6th.
Okay, good. Nice and hot.
But what I would have liked to see is that all of the community groups and organizations come together and put their energies towards an event that everybody could get involved in. Because what happened is there was 3 groups that approached the city. Actually, not even approach the city. The city actually approached groups to submit submissions to see who will be the group who will manage the carnival. So, so what came out of it? There was one group that came out, the Caramas group, and congratulations to them.
Right.
But I'm not happy in the fact that the city only funded them only $30,000 for this huge event. So
Right.
I'm hoping that the city will look to find some more monies in their coffers,
Right.
so that they could give a good start. Also, they have to do some fundraising, and also too, it was a little bit now. We're at the last minute, But what I'm
Did
saying
you
is
say
that
like the city? Just so I understand it, like you're unhappy that rather than having all of the different groups working together to put on the best version of it, the city pit the different groups against each other, kind of like on The
they didn't pit the
Apprentice.
groups against each other, And I'm going to bring it back: the responsibility of the community. If the community organizations came together, there would be no problem, right? So it was more like an internal thing within our community, where if we're all able to mobilize, because the carnival is a community event, right? So
Right.
this is what I would like to see: that if there's 100 Black, white, West Indian, this and that, and they want to get involved with the carnival, have a process where everybody could get together, But as I said, sometimes we call it, it's like, is it a tribal thing? People, that individualistic thing. And, we see it in organizations. Some people have power, they don't understand what they're doing and things like that. So I've always found that when you have a collective spirit and a collective vision, it's much more easier to mobilize resources. And that's something I will tell everybody.
I completely hear you, and I want the West Indian community to feel that this is not a unique problem to them.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned it.
This
Good.
happens in other communities, and
Society problems.
I think I have to deal with these issues personally as well, from my activism and my involvement, and I'm just trying to figure out how to work through these things, because I'm not here to point fingers or levy blame. There's always egos involved, and there's like rivalries, and like you said, there's kind of like these territorial turf fights going on. I got it. I think, when it comes back to it, we all have to recognize that we belong to the same family, and we're going to argue among each other. That's going to happen.
Problem.
And we got to come to terms with that and say, okay, we had an argument, we disagreed, and this is kind of a way to go forward. Can we all like get on that boat now, right?
Yeah, that's it.
And not harbor resentments, right? Because when you start harboring resentments,
never
goes forward. But going back to that, I really, what I'm curious to know is, the West Indian community has been a fixture of Montreal from when a young boy, the Carafest, going into that festival, and the big question I have is, the West Indian community, not only you visible minorities, you're Black, right, but you're Anglophones. Anthony Bonaparte Napoleon, from the editorial cartoonist from the suburban cities, double discriminated against because he's Black and he's an Anglophone, and I just. I'm looking. I'm a numbers guy, and I've been looking at the demographic figures of CDNG, and we got really, we've been going through a tough time. We got walloped with, the political environment. Whether it's good or bad, but it affected us in a negative way. A lot of us left for greener pastures, right, and our population went down. And I see that in the Anglophone community, and I'm guessing this is the same thing that's happening in the West Indian community. And so I guess that's my first question. Is this something you're seeing in the West Indian community? Is that the community is actually shrinking, or is it growing?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you want to look at it, right? We're kind of like obsolete if you want to look at it.
Right.
Numbers have gone down. So, now your numbers are down. You don't have those political connections, financial connections collectively. Even when I give talks at, call it high schools, universities, CJEPs and stuff, there's not even a lot of, even the Black students, they're all from like out of town, right? Or English African or whatever. There's nobody who grew up here in Montreal. Like it's like they disappear. Right. Or they're falling between the cracks, or they've left the province. I could remember, I guess after 76 or whatever, a lot of my family members, a lot of people, I guess everybody went out to Calgary. Calgary was the hot spot or something.
Right.
Like that,
I lost a lot of friends to Calgary too.
Yeah. But it's like to say, like, why do we want to stay here? I mean, and you know what, listen, I could tell somebody this, right? I mean, if somebody's coming here from Jamaica, and you come in here to Montreal and the language is going to be an issue, I'm going to tell the person, listen, go to Toronto,
Right.
You know, 'cause you're going to have the challenge. And things have not gotten better here in Quebec. It's gotten worse.
Yes.
You know, and we have,
I
you know,
think so.
we see who's in power right now, and
Yes.
it
I
is
don't
what it
like
is.
it. I don't like it at all.
I've said on the record that Quebec is the, what do you call it? It's the deep south of the north.
Yeah.
And I stick by that, because we see how does it, you know, I guess I've gotten older too, right? I mean, I'm going to speak my mind on some things, and it's political, and some people may not agree, but it is what it is. It's because of the actions that the government has taken. It's a reality.
I like you, Brian Smith. I like you very much.
I'm not making.
I want this guy on the show a lot.
I'm not making these things up. So, you know,
Right.
but how do I now? It makes my job harder now to say, okay, all right, for those people who here, you're going to decide and you're going to stay here for your family for whatever reasons. Okay, so you got to learn the language. Okay, you got the language now. Now you got the discrimination. You're black. Now you got the discrimination now that you are you're female, and there's so many different things, you know. So
or you're an Anglophone whose second language is French.
So
language is French, yeah. Right?
So a lot of people, they're just surviving. You know, yeah. How do you're not really thinking about, how do you think about the future where, you know what? Oh, geez, you don't got a job, or, you know, you can't speak the language. And then, you know, or you do find a job, and you're underemployed, right? So all of these stressors. So some people figure, you know I'm gone to Toronto. Life is good. You don't have to hear every day about the politics. And it's funny. It's really funny because I'm not a Toronto person, right? I would only go to Toronto for business. And it's just funny where I could remember going to Toronto regularly and spending a couple of days, and it's like not hearing it was like a burden was lifted off my shoulder, because I'm dealing with people in Toronto and it's English, and, you know, you don't have all of this, you know, the culture, well, I don't call it the culture, but all of the bad stuff with Quebec. And listen, I'm all down for learning a language. I have nothing against French people. Je parle français, il n'y a pas de problème avec ça, no problem. But it's just a different aura. And coming from a time when Quebec, Montreal was the top, was the place to be, you know,
the economic and political capital of the country.
Exactly, exactly. So, you know,
Montreal was where it's at. We were the jewel of the country. Right. Yeah.
There you go. So this is what I've lived, you know, and then, you know, I guess after 76, and, you know, they try to pit people against each other and stuff like
division.
That. You know,
it's exhausting. I'm tired of it.
There's also a lot of immigration, right? And when you think about the Caribbean community, there's also the Haitian group, which is arguably less English. And from my understanding, as Rachel's pointing out in the chat, that there's a lot more Haitians now than other demographics. And has this shifted the reality for the West Indian community, how everybody deals, especially with regards to being English in the city?
I don't think it's just a Haitian thing. I think there's been quite a bit of immigration also from the French West Africa. There's a lot of French West Africans
specifically
in Montreal
but Haiti's in the West Indies, so it's
kind
of the same community,
but you know,
rather than Africa being a bit different.
I see. You're trying to see, is the Haitian community
within the Caribbean community,
or is there's really a distinction between the Anglophone West Indians and the French?
Because my understanding is the African community and the West Indian community, while both sharing a similar skin color, are culturally significantly different.
Oh yeah. There's differences. I mean, as I said, you know, that comes to the whole tribal mentality that still exists. So it's like, you know what? Okay, our skin is black, but you don't speak the language or whatever, or you speak French better than me or whatever. And, you know, each of the islands or countries have their cultural differences too at the same time, you know, so, and it could be a weakness, but it could also be a strength. But, you know, when they say, right, like, you know, divide and conquer and stuff like that. And I've seen where government has pitted organizations. I mean, here's the reality. I mean, if you are an English community organization, you're not going to get the same amount of funding as your French counterpart. That's a reality. I've seen it, whatever the case may be. So also, where we're living in a world of survival, you know, the Haitian group or French speaking groups, blacks, you know, they're going to get theirs. People are going to get theirs because, you know what? you know what, you don't get funding, maybe your organization not going to be able to hire people and stuff like that. So once again, this is the reality. It's gotten better, but there is a mental division that still exists within Quebec, within the Black communities too as well. And it's a language thing. We could work with that. And the thing is, because there's a lot more people who are bilingual and stuff like that, but there are cultural differences that are there. And that's just, it's just like, say, it's just like a part of life. But that's where I'm saying is I like working within that dynamic, because it's sometimes you'll be able to get people to say, you know what, the collective vision is, listen, we want to live a life, we want to be healthy, we want to be happy, have a job, healthcare, whatever. We all kind of want the same thing. We could get there, but that whole division stuff there, pitting people against, and it's and some people just, within the English community, a lot of people have given up. They said, you know what, this is what it is. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. It's so hard to get ahead. Or they just said, you know what, I'm going to pick up for the betterment of myself or my family. I'm going to go to the States, or I'm going to go to Calgary, Nova Scotia, whatever. There are opportunities that are there, but Montreal is dear to my heart, and I guess that's why I'm still here, because I see the opportunities. What my mentality was back in the day when all my English friends were leaving, I said, you know what, you all leave, there'll be more opportunities for me. That was my mentality. But I mean, it's tough. It's not easy.
I did that. The only reason why I can enjoy the career that I have today is because I picked up and went to Toronto. I was there for 4 years, and it's amazing. I always joke about the experience that says it's amazing what 400 kilometers or 500 kilometer does to a Montrealer, an Anglophone knows how to speak French. You leave the province of Quebec and you're at a liability, right? And then you drive 500 kilometers in Toronto, and all of a sudden your liability becomes an asset. Just imagine where else in the world does that happen? It's just like so I started my career there, and I completely hear you about the challenges and the frustrations and people giving up. I see that now. I really do. People are just sort of like, kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Condemn themselves, or almost like
here's a story. I mean, and it happened to me a lot where, when I'm looking to get funding, and because, there's people or organizations, not necessarily within the Black community, who are these gatekeepers. So these gatekeepers are French organizations, and I go to them and get support, and I can't get support. So my strategy is, you know what, I'm going to go to head office. A head office is in Toronto, and I tell them what I'm doing. And you CC people on an email, and it comes back to them and say, well, how come you didn't take care of Mr. Smith? Because Mr. Smith has this project and stuff like, to make sure like people, so,
actually,
there's
that's
so
a
many.
really, really big tip that I think people should just double back on, in case you glossed over that. If the Quebec version's blocking you, see if there's a Toronto version and contact them and be like, hey.
I mean, look, it's a cultural thing. As people said, it's a cultural thing. It's like this. I mean, look, strategically, I tell somebody, you know what, you're applying for a project in Quebec or whatever. Believe you me, I will take the time to send in my paperwork in French. It's just the reality of the situation. Some people, human beings, they'll see it in English. Maudit, pas temps pour ça. It happens. I see it. I hear it. I'm in meetings. It's so you got to be able to pivot and be smart, and it's you got to be able to hustle. I've always found, like I said, I don't hear back from somebody. I see the superior, then I'll get I believe that any of my projects that I do, if I get a sit down with somebody, I could sell somebody the idea, and that's also too. One of the things too, when I was growing up, I used to sell World Book Encyclopedia.
Oh my God. Youngums, do you know what those are? It's before Wikipedia.
Yeah.
We had to look in books for information.
Books. You had to look at books. Yeah.
And there was a table. Remember, there was the index. You had to look up. Okay, where do I find that in this book?
Yeah, and all these big libraries and stuff like that. I wonder where the people who bought those, like, if they still have them. But I mean, they must be collector's items, because
I see them in the trash all the time now. It's tragic. They used to cost a lot of money, and they're like, remember Botanica and these kind of things?
Botanica, all those things. Yeah,
and I see them in the garbage.
That's where I used to go and absorb information. I mean, you go and you see, flip through things. So I've always had this thing to learn,
The world has
Now you
changed.
just go on podcasts and you have
That's
people
right.
read you. You have
Yeah.
people read you the same information that you would have had in the encyclopedia and add their commentary.
But
quite
listen,
something.
let me bring the arts thing to it. But I mean, it's different if you look at it. They say somebody who's a DJ, right? So now you're going from, let's say, just go back to as far as with vinyl, where you have the disc and you put it on,
Yes.
and you hear the hiss and the pop and the crackling and
Very
stuff like
familiar.
that, and the mixing.
I know
You
it
don't
very
need
well.
all of that anymore. I mean, having
What? I do that.
the
I
touching
still
the
do
wax.
that. What are you saying?
Yeah, there was a bit. I mean, I was into music too, but I mean, there was a thing where you would get a high. You go down to the record store, on Thursday, Friday, and you're the person to get the newest song, and you spend the time searching, for the music, and you find, oh yeah, you got it. You know what I mean? So now you don't have it. Everything is so easily accessible. So
No.
maybe
It still
some people
exists.
don't have that the same appreciation.
Brian,
I mean,
I need to stop you there.
I'm gonna have to stop you, Alex. I mean, people
Encore
don't have to
records,
carry
okay?
crates of
Decibino.
records no more. People have hard drives with 10,000 songs on them, and ain't nobody carrying crates no more. You used to have to carry crates of all them records if you wanted to be cool at the party.
I have crates.
Alex, you
Yeah,
carry
the seal test milk crates.
Yeah,
seal
I need
test
to
milk
feel
crate.
them. Need to feel the
That's
record. And when you have a record, right, usually it comes with an insert with added documentation information about the band.
Exactly.
And I really, I got out of it and I got back into it and I'm having a lot of fun with it. And I try to sometimes I'll be like in the most innocuous place, like an elevator, and I'll hear a tune and go, oh, I remember that track. I haven't heard that in a long time. And then I'll try to find it on vinyl. And it's a goose chase and it's a lot of fun.
Don't get me wrong, vinyl is actually on a big comeback, and as a collector's item and stuff, it is there. And then modern technology can let you DJ like that if you want. It's just not the same world no more with music.
It is not, no.
Because I'm friends with a lot of DJs, and their flexes are, I've got this many songs on my hard drive, how many do you got? And it's just changed.
And the thing too with having the music digitally is that you can manipulate, as a DJ, you have a lot more power to manipulate it than you do with vinyl. Like you can have part of the track repeating itself while you have the same track, starting from this point and that point. There's a lot of stuff that you can do that you can't do on vinyl.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, all those things is cool, right?
Right.
We could manipulate things, right? Like as I said before, we were talking about artificial intelligence. You know what I mean? We don't need a DJ anymore. You know what I mean? Like you can manipulate the voice of all of these types of things. And as I said, we're just in the beginning stages of all of this stuff. So, but I think once again, bring it back to the arts. I think that what really will move people and continue to move people is that having an artist who can perform in front of a crowd, right? And it's not everybody that could do that because we've got all of these studio artists and stuff like that. But can you now take your art and create and perform in front of a crowd? I think
that's where the money is in the industry now, right?
Yeah,
live shows, right? That's why in the past,
debatably, people are canceling tours left, right, and center, and there's a lot less money in touring since COVID has unfortunately made the average cost of a tour something like 40 to 50% more expensive just due to logistics.
Yeah, it'll change. It'll change, but you know what?
But in your defense, I'm just saying the current economics of touring is maybe like, yes, there's a tier of artists that live off of it, but there's just a lot less money in it right now. However, I was like a huge proponent of VR. I actually was just thinking about it today and how into it. I was convinced this was going to be the future of everything. And then I realized when COVID ended and we were allowed to go perform again, people really like sweat. Like, I know it's a weird thing, but like you want to be in a sweaty, gross room with like 100 people and the prospective chances of courting somebody and like all of that, the shared experience isn't replicatable in modern day technology, and maybe
it's very
be
hard
there for a while.
Yeah, and it's very hard for me to really appreciate an experience with Holden unless I'm beside him, chowing down on a pickle.
Nah, we don't know about that.
I guess it's just this, right? I mean, for me, I like to see people perform, right? I mean, it's not the same thing. Look, technology can bring us together. I mean, we could live stream, we could do all these types of things, but I mean, I don't think anything will ever replace a performing artist in an auditorium, in a crowd, performing and people see it. It's just like the energy. But once again, it's not for everybody, right? I mean, maybe for the the lower level artists or whatever the case may be, it may
that's where actually it's really painful, because like there is, if you look at it at the top level, there's a lot of sold out shows, but a lot of stuff festivals kind of hurt independent low end shows because it changed the value proposition of a ticket price. So if you can get like 50 artists on a weekend for $200, spending like $30 to go out to one local show on a Friday night becomes a lot less of a good value proposition. And that kind of stuff has impacted a lot of younger people, which is why festivals tend to do pretty well, but individual shows are like. And then across Canada and in Quebec are two different markets too, because at least in underground hip hop, like there's a lot less English people here to support these older English artists or these underground English artists coming through. So like there might be some popping rapper in the States that's at that point where in theory they should sell out Belmont, but a lot of the young people are listening to the French version of him. So they never got to the English version of him. And so we're seeing this transition in the lower end. But I think in the bigger end, artists are doing real well with this, like creating experiences. But you have to create an experience now. It can't just be
there you go. An experience,
You can't just rap, like as much as people make that old man comment, you can't just rap over your vocals. You really can't, because the ticket sales are proving that. You actually got, like if you look at Burna Boy, that dude be like selling out the whole freaking world right now, and a lot of it is his antics and his performance. Like he went viral bringing a girl backstage in front of her boyfriend and things like that, and it just creates this this bigger energy. Whereas if you just stand there, like I know Waka Flocka Flame got away with not rapping and he made it lit, but most people don't have Waka Flocka Flame's like charisma to pull that off. So like that's what I think. Seeing like the low end is struggling, but the people who can throw giant theatrical things are crushing the live circuit.
But you would also see that those people who are at the high end, we'll call it commercially, right? They're being pushed, right? They have all the supports there to get them out there.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So that's part of the game.
So saying that,
also before Alex comes in, we have a comment, a question from the comments saying, "Ask Brian about Reggae Fest, please. What's going on? What's the story?
Wait.
Why does the city hate reggae and soca?
What's happening with Reggae Fest? Okay,
that's a good question, Alex.
So you know what? Reggae has a very and before we talk about Reggae Fest, as Alex is lighting up, remember, as I said, you're going to be giving away some of these candles with the, what do you call those there at the bottom? They're the
traffic cone candles.
Montreal limited edition.
There, you can't buy these anywhere else. The only place they exist is here in this room.
Limited edition.
But trust, we'll make sure you can buy them from us. We'll make sure you can buy them from us. We promise.
Right.
There you go. So the viewers asking about the Reggae Fest. So the Montreal Reggae Fest was a staple in the Montreal. It was kept down at the old port for did a run for at least maybe 10 years, and then it just cut because I'm assuming as far as with funding, but the people in Montreal would like to see something like that come back. And I'm saying that too because I
love reggae.
I have a spiritual connection to reggae. I used to co-host a show on CKUT radio. So I guess the thing though is with these large festivals cost a lot of moolah because the artists, it's not like, back in the day where, okay, and you're going to get this artist for $5,000, $10,000. Now it's like you got to pay these artists $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. And sometimes within the reggae market, and as I said, I want to say this, right? Because I don't want any artists, whether they're international, say, oh, this guy is saying I shouldn't get paid this money. You're worth how much somebody's willing to pay you. That's kind of, I look at it like that. So if you could get $80,000 for it and you're worth that, fine, no problem. But it doesn't really balance out in certain markets where you're charging so much, and the promoter has to take this big risk. So
And like
all
this
the
is kind
artists.
of so like just in like so like it's complicated, right? Because like I said, now it costs the artist something like 40% more just to travel here and eat with their entourage, just like that off jump.
Well, that's so, and that's why I'll tell you
And
this. That's why
then
I got out of that. That's why I got out of that business, because
well,
you
like
got to pay
it's
for the
not just
artist.
you. Prior to, and this happened prior to COVID. People may not be realized because I know people blame COVID, but it was actually 2018, 2019 when a lot of people started quitting the live promo game in Canada, at least. So there was an exodus of talented people throwing concerts and shows across the country. And since COVID, it's honestly been amateur hour. And no disrespect to the people that are skilled doing this. And like guys like Peter Jackson, who across Canada has done a lot of great work. But a lot of the people that are supporting it, the touring agencies and stuff, they're literally like 2 years old max. And they're just kind of trying to fill a void. And so there's just a lot of inefficiencies at pretty much every level. So like if it really is artists are charging this much and they're doing that because they're trying to get paid, but then on our side we can't afford that because there's less funding, especially since COVID. And it's kind of like this weird situation where I've seen a few people complain about this in particular, but there seems to not be able to find this balance in the middle between what the artists want and what the people can afford, and it's kind of crippling things.
It's like an economy, right? So I mean, you know what, you're charging this amount, and then the promoter now, okay, for him to make back his or her money, they got to put up the ticket price, and then the people say, oh, I can't afford this, this is too much or whatever. Sometimes it works, right, where there's such a demand and people will pay it, right, because there's so much of a hype and stuff like that. But there's no promoter that goes into the business to lose money, right? And then sometimes too, there's so many events, so much promotion going on. It's good to a point, but then also, you're basically, you need your consumer who's going to have that disposable income that could afford to go to the shows, So you have to understand who your customer is. Maybe your customer is somebody who will go to 2 or 3 live shows per year, and that's it, So as I said, all of the production costs of doing these festivals before COVID, they've all skyrocketed. So, kudos to the promoters who are out there who are still doing their stuff. I know it's not easy. I don't have the belly for it because I kind of work my thing is I work, most of the things that I do are doing free shows for the community thing where I will get funding, but it's things that are open to the community. I sleep better at night. There's ways to make money that way, but it's like literally it's like playing the lottery sometimes for some shows. You know what I mean? Like not everybody is going to have an artist who's going to sell out. So and I've been there before. I mean, I can remember I was part of a group back in the day. We brought Coolio to Montreal. You remember Coolio?
Sure.
and Coolio was the biggest. He was the biggest thing commercially, but it's like a couple weeks before the show, it was like there's this sentiment going around. Oh, he's too commercial. Oh, Coolio's a sellout. This, that, whatever. People didn't come to the show. But I've also been involved with shows too as well on a promotional aspect. I was involved doing the Fugees. I was involved with Cypress Hill, and these are things more so working behind the scenes, but I was involved with shows like that. So I remember doing Cypress Hill. We put one ad in the Montreal Mirror on a Thursday. Friday night, the show was sold out. So it's like, wow. You figure every show is going to be like that, but
the fickle world of art, it's a tough gig, that's for sure. But hey, guys, we need Brian Smith back on the show because I have a lot more questions about the challenges that are being faced by the West Indian community. I want to talk about his involvement in financial literacy. We didn't really talk about what inspired you to create that program. I'm interested to know why, and also. I even have on the agenda another Exodus, and I actually quote Bob Marley here, right? I don't know if you saw that. So definitely talk more about the reggae connection and the Exodus new exodus that, perhaps that we are already, involved with right now, related to the new political environment, or the dark political environment where we're presently finding ourselves in, as a neighborhood as a whole, right? It's affecting us all, right?
Because a lot of the issues that get described, they're not like I think they get paralleled across all the communities for the most part. And we might feel siloed, but I'm pretty sure every English community in the city is going through a very similar thing.
And saying that, April 25th at 7 p.m. at the Legion, there'll be a documentary film being presented, directed and written and produced by Guy Rex Rogers. It's a documentary on the Anglophone minority experience the last 50 years. I encourage everybody to be at that film. It's an excellent film, professionally done. It's an inspiring film. It's really not a rant in any way. It's a celebration of the Anglophone community, the Anglophone contributions in this province. So please come out. And now we come to the romance part of the show. To all our listeners out there who are still here and who are like on the edge of their seats to win these traffic cone candles, right? Only available here.
All I can say is Rachel really wants the candles.
Nowhere else. Only here. Painted by myself, of course. So here's
With
question
love.
1. Okay, whoever gets the best answers and the most answers correct wins the candles, okay, too. So the first question is, and this comes, it's been inspired by this interview, is name 2 live music venues in NDG, okay? And then, so that's the first one, right?
You can't just rush through the questions. You now have to give people a chance to answer.
I don't want to give them too much long because I don't want them on Facebook.
No, because it's like, okay, but there's a 30-second delay between the stream hitting the people.
Oh, there is 30-second stream. Oh, okay, so that's
so right. If you have to then also give them a chance to type and answer the question. Okay, we good. We got 2 people answered. Now we can move on to question 2.
Question 2. Oh yeah. Okay. What was the name of the important NNG black activist that passed away recently? We mentioned this in the show, so if you were listening, you know who that is, right? And should I go to the next question, third last question?
Give it like 15 seconds and then
All right. Tick tock, tick tock. Yeah, but they're gonna get the information anyway. What difference does it make? Okay, the last final question. Okay, this is a Trainman trivia question. Okay, Trainman show report, obviously. So the question number 3, last question, is what does Holden Stephan Roy hate? He hates something. What is it? We mentioned it repeatedly on the show, and he hates these things with a passion. He's created a whole line of merch that go along with it. And so that's the last and final question. And I think that, so we'll just let them answer, and we'll choose the winner.
I got answers. We got answers. So
who wins?
Both Rachel and John Jordan got question 3 correctly, which is pickles. Fair enough. Fuck a pickle. And in case anyone likes pickles, though, I would like to say we are not against people who like pickles. You can now get your I like pickle pin available now. So if you do like pickles, we do care about you and want your money just as much as the people who hate pickles. Then as far as the venues, we got John Jordan with Wheel Club and Honey Martins, and Rachel K with Mariposa and Wheel Club. So arguably they both got that question.
Okay.
But now the second question, we got different answers. So Rachel K came with Prezi and Noah Alexander, and John Jordan came with Egbert Gay. So the question is, I don't know which one of the 3 was the answer.
They're both wrong.
They're both wrong?
Wrong, yeah. It's Dan Phillip. He's the one who passed away recently.
Recently, yeah.
They're both wrong. So what's your bonus question, Alex? Make something up on the spot. We can't leave this hanging. We've got the suspense. We've got the engagement.
Last question. Okay. Here's the last question. Okay, it's gonna be an Alex Trainman question. What train line does Alex Montagano collect? Alex Trainman Montagano collect. What train line? It's easy, right? So.
Don't worry, Rachel. I'm also not sure, and I maybe should know the answer. Let's see if John Jordan has an
John,
answer
did you
on
get
what
the answer,
Trainman.
John? Did John get the answer?
CN. Well, they both
Yeah.
came in with CN, but John technically got it slightly first
Okay.
based on the order of the comments. Is it CN?
Rachel, you can win them next week. Who is Rachel?
Rachel, okay. Come on, she makes
Rachel
cakes,
K.
bro. She got the
What's that?
cheesecake plug.
Oh, right. So sorry. I'm terrible with names. John Jordan, you win. Traffic cone candles. And John, you really gotta go. You gotta brag that you won these, okay? I want you on social media just
But
going
Rachel,
crazy.
if you come back next Tuesday at 6 p.m., there will be
I'll have
another
another
opportunity to win, and we'll make sure that after the opportunities to win are done, that Alex makes them available for freaking sale, because if people want to buy them, don't rob yourself, my G. Don't hustler spirit. You have to see the opportunities.
It's the next big thing. It's the next big thing.
These are not easy to make, okay? These were 3D
So
printed,
charge
by the way.
appropriately.
They took 8 hours to
Make
print.
them expensive.
Then I had to spray paint them, and then I had to paint them.
Establish a cost and add a percentage for profit. I digress. We will make them available as an exclusive item.
Yes. Okay. Saying that, I think it's important that we end this interview.
Okay, Rachel gets the thing because John is trying to get a cake out of her.
Well, maybe they can go on a date together, and there's their
That's
candles,
right. We bring people together. Bring people together. That's what it's all about.
Rachel, I can get you those candles at some point.
It's going to cost you a date with John Jordan.
But, yeah, go on, Alex.
Okay, John Jordan is giving them to Rachel. Okay, fair enough. I don't want to impose anything.
You should probably not impose on our organic chat things after making it awkward.
Yeah. I guess in conclusion, and then I can't thank Brian Smith enough for joining us and sharing with his youth. I mean, his experience as a young man or a young boy in NDG, and his contributions to the community, and how he's a giver. And I want to thank you for that. It's very important that we have people who want to give. And I look forward to hearing from you again, Brian. I am available in any capacity that I can to assist you if you so desire it. And
well, here's something, Alex. Do you like jerk chicken? Do you like jerk chicken?
I love food.
Okay, so here's something. You see, Canada Day, I do a jerk chicken eating contest.
I want to do that so badly.
At Martin Luther King Jr. Park. Right. And when we got my good friend Mr. Boom out there, he's got Mr. Boom jerk dressing and stuff like that. Yeah. So if you can come in, person who could eat 6 pieces of jerk chicken the quickest, there's a cash prize that's there. And if you just want to come and eat the chicken, you could eat the chicken.
I'll come and eat the chicken. I don't know if I want to eat the fastest. I'm in to compete though.
I'll represent the Trainman Report properly and eat those wings. That's what I'm saying.
I'm there. That's not a hard thing for me to do.
I've seen him post about this for a couple of years. And then I added him, and he didn't notice me at the time.
But you have to understand who the champion is, right?
Who's the champion?
I'm the champ.
Oh yeah, you think you're the champ, man?
I'm the champ. You gotta beat the champ. You have to beat the champ.
You're going down, man.
Listen, I won a pie contest one time in high school. I am prepared.
It's funny. I'll just end the show by saying there's these hot dog eating competitions, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then for a while, the person that was winning was this thin, small Asian woman. Do you remember her?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
You can't.
So I don't know if the guy who's known in the States, his name is what? Joey Chestnuts. Joey Chestnuts. He's the guy.
He's the reigning champion right now?
He's the guy there in Coney Island and stuff.
Oh,
I don't do it at that level, right? I mean, but, it's just, and it's all in fun. Everything is in fun,
I mean, I think 6 chicken wings is a reasonable goal.
Not chicken wings, my friend.
Legs.
Oh. 6 leg and thigh. So you're actually
done. Easy.
Yeah.
I'm still
That's good eating. That's good eating.
All
right.
I can eat a copious amount of chicken. I'm just saying. I'm in. I'm with it. Chris is like, I want to come too.
Okay, so that's it. I'm not joking. You're going to be booked.
Well, I'm going to be there.
You will be carrying the pressure to represent the Trainman.
Got that shit. I'll get all disgusting, hands in, chicken to the face, no shame, getting judged after the fact. Let's go.
By the way. I'll have the hat, the whole 9 yards. Okay?
All right.
I'll even take out my stopwatch and I'll show you guys how it's done. Right,
No
this fast,
problem. No
guys.
problem. No problem.
Alrighty.
I
Thank
so
you so
definitely appreciate everybody coming through and watching live. Make sure to tell your friends about the Trainman Report. The only way a show like this grows is by you telling people it's worth watching. At the end of the day, tell us who you want to come on the show. If you have a business or a thing you're involved in, we're trying to turn this into an opportunity for you to come and share what you're up to and let the world know what's going on within our little borough over here, because ain't no way that the government's going to fund better media in the future here. We got to do it
That's right.
ourselves.
Notre Dame de Grace.
Peace and love.
And yeah, so thank you all for watching. Again, we'll be back next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Alex is giving away more candles. Tell him that you'll pay him enough and he'll print them for you. I promise. He's going to see the light. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Appreciate everyone being there, and live long and prosper, everyone.
Peace.